Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're jumping into a really interesting stack of sources, all centered on influence, and specifically what they all point to as the single most powerful tool we have for persuasion: storytelling.
Yeah, and it's a compelling mission because right out of the gate, the sources throw this really harsh reality at you. It kind of challenges everything we think we know.
How so?
Well, we assume that in business or, in any field really, the person with the best data, the smartest argument, the biggest spreadsheet, they should win. But the material forces you to ask, why is the smartest person in the room almost never the one who gets paid the most?
And that's the core conflict, right? We're all out here chasing this idea of, like, intellectual superiority.
Exactly. But the sources, they argue that the person who consistently wins, whether that's winning a salary, a client, a deal, is the best storyteller.
It's driven home with that one powerful contrast they use. If you read a spreadsheet with, say, 10,000 rows of data, the classic data dump method, what do you remember the next day?
Almost nothing. Your brain just, it treats it like static, it's noise.
Right. But if I tell you the story of that same company, the founder who got rejected by 30 banks, who had to sleep on the factory floor, who nearly went bankrupt trying to solve one problem.
You remember that forever. That human struggle, it sticks.
So that's our mission today. We want to move past just saying, oh, stories are nice, and really understand why they work, why they just completely bypass our logical brain and create this emotional connection.
And how we can actually shift our own communication to use that power.
So let's start with where most of us go wrong. We default to logic. There's that famous line right in the sources: facts tell, but stories sell.
And that maxim, it's so critical because it's the diagnosis for the biggest mistake professionals make. When you're trying to influence someone, sell, lead, convince, your first instinct is to build the logical case.
The features, the stats, the specs.
The data dump. You're building a case that's intellectually solid for you, but for the listener, it's basically inert.
But why does logic fail us? I mean, logically, it should be the most effective way to communicate value, shouldn't it?
You'd think so. But logic triggers what the sources call analysis mode.
Analysis mode.
Think about it. When you get a hard set of facts, what does your brain do? Your defenses go up. You immediately get skeptical. You start looking for the hole in the argument, the flaw, the exception.
You're putting up a filter.
You are a filter to protect yourself from being sold on something. And the key insight here is that logic makes people think. And when people are thinking, they're often paralyzed. But when they feel, that's when they're compelled to act.
That's a huge distinction. So if I list 10 reasons my product is better than the competition, you're actually busy trying to find the 11th reason it's not.
Exactly. But if I tell you a story, that whole barrier of skepticism it sort of melts away.
You can almost picture it in say, a budget meeting. You hand the compliance officer a 40-page projection.
She is 100% in analysis mode, critical, looking for errors. But if you frame that same data inside a story about how this budget finally solves the one big problem that's been costing her team their weekends for months.
You've shifted it from validation to victory.
The story gives the logic context. It gives it a purpose.
But hold on, we can't just throw out logic entirely, can we? I mean, you have to show the numbers.
Of course. And that's the crucial nuance. Logic is essential for justification, but it's almost useless for persuasion.
So it comes after.
It comes after the emotional connection has been made. Once the story has bypassed their inner skeptic, you hand them the spreadsheet. It's the logical receipt for the emotional decision they've already made.
That tees us up perfectly for the science of it all. How a story physically changes the listener's brain. The sources have a name for this, right? Neural coupling.
Neural coupling, this is where it gets really mind-blowing. It's not a metaphor, for connection. It's a literal biological synchronization of brain activity.
What do you mean synchronization?
I mean, studies show that when a person is telling an effective story, the listener's brain patterns actually start to mirror the speaker's. It's not just the language centers that light up, it's the experiential parts of the brain, too.
So if I describe walking through a dark forest, the listener's motor cortex is firing as if they're the one walking.
Precisely. You're creating a shared reality. And it's that shared experience that, it basically hacks the listener's biochemistry. This is way deeper than just keeping them engaged.
Okay, tell me more about the biochemical reaction. That's the part we can actually use.
Right. So you can trace the release of specific neurochemicals. First, when you introduce the conflict in the story, the stress, the high stakes, the moment it could all fall apart, you are actively increasing the listener's cortisol level.
You're making them feel the stress with you.
Yes, they become invested because on a chemical level, they're uncomfortable. They need a resolution.
They feel the dragon breathing down their neck.
That's it. But you don't leave them in that state of stress. As you move to the resolution, the victory, that's when you get a flood of dopamine. It's a powerful reward signal. The listener gets that hit of satisfaction and relief just from listening.
It's the chemical payoff.
And there's a third one, oxytocin. People call it the bonding chemical. It's released when you show vulnerability or share something personal. That's what builds the actual trust between you and the listener. It's the foundation.
So you're creating this chemical cocktail. Cortisol for attention, dopamine for reward, oxytocin for trust.
And by doing that, you're planting your idea, your solution, inside their head. And because of the neural coupling, they feel like they got there on their own. They own the idea.
It's their conclusion.
Yes. But to even start that process, to trigger that coupling, you have to avoid the single biggest mistake people make, especially high achievers.
Which is, according to the sources, telling a story about how great you are.
The brag. It's the person who says, I was so smart, I just effortlessly solved the problem. That's not a story. There's no conflict. There's no relatable friction. It just pushes people away.
It makes total sense when you say it like that.
Yeah.
If I tell you I succeeded without any struggle, where's the connection point for you? But if I tell you I almost quit,
That's when the connection happens.
that's where that emotional contract gets signed.
Mm-hmm.
A story without a problem is just a boring statement. The vulnerability of admitting you had to fight a dragon. That's the hook.
That is the cortisol moment you have to earn to get to the dopamine release. And you see the huge brands, the ones the sources cite, doing this perfectly. They know they aren't selling products. They're selling conflict and identity.
Right, take Nike. You never see a Nike ad that's been 60 seconds talking about the specific density of the rubber in the sole.
No, never. Nike sells you the story of the underdog. They sell the pain of the 5 a.m. workout, the exhaustion, the self-doubt, all the struggle that comes before the greatness.
They're selling the idea that you are the hero who overcomes that inertia. The shoe is it's the tool you use on your journey.
Or Apple. That famous Think Different campaign. They weren't selling processing speeds.
No, they were selling an identity, an act of rebellion.
Exactly. The identity was, you're a creative, a rebel, an outsider who is going to change the world. They sold the struggle against the status quo. In all these great brand stories, the product is secondary to the emotional journey of the user.
Okay, so that link is super clear for consumer brands. But let's bring it back to our own professional lives. If we want to really master this, there's that advanced move, sort of secret sauce.
This is the big one. It's a perspective shift. And it's this. In your business, in your pitch, you are not the hero of the story.
And I think that is the absolute hardest pill for high performers to swallow. Because we're taught to be the star,
Right.
to prove we're the best.
So we fall into the trap of trying to be Luke Skywalker. But the sources point out the problem with that perfectly. If you are the hero, what does that make your
Our
customer?
sidekick.
They become R2-D2.
And nobody wants to be the sidekick, especially not your client or your boss. Everyone sees themselves as the main character of their own life.
So your job is to step out of that spotlight. Your job is to become the guide. You have to be Yoda.
The guide.
The guide is actually way more powerful than the hero, because the guide is the one who's already been through it all, who has the map, and who gives the hero the tool they need to win.
And the tool is our product, our solution, our idea. We give it to the customer, the hero, so that they can defeat their villain and win their day.
And that framework, it immediately changes how you talk. First, you have to actually define the villain. What is the customer really fighting? It's not just the competition.
No, the villains are things like complexity, inertia, outdated systems, the fear of failure, lost time.
Those are the real struggles. That's the cortisol.
So instead of my standard pitch, we're an award-winning company with the best features, which is the hero talking.
You switch to the guide's dialogue. The guide validates the hero's struggle. So you'd start with something like, I know you're struggling with the villain of complexity right now. Your current system is costing you 3 full days of productivity a week, and that's just not acceptable.
Okay, so you're acknowledging their pain. Then I know your goal is to get those 3 days back so you can focus on growth.
And I have a plan. A clear 3-step process that has helped other heroes just like you beat this exact same villain. Our solution is the tool that makes the plan work. You do the winning, we just show you the way.
That is so powerful. It just completely reframes the entire conversation around the listener's success. You're giving them a narrative arc where they get to be the hero.
And it moves them straight out of analysis mode and into action mode because you've positioned your solution as the key to fulfilling their own hero's journey.
It lets them feel like it's their decision, their story to overcome their struggle, which, because of neural coupling, feels completely true and organic to them.
So, at the end of the day, what does this all mean? I think it means that real influence requires this one big humbling shift. You have to move away from cold logic and the data dump and toward emotional connection.
It means you need the vulnerability to talk about the struggle, not just the win.
Hmm.
And maybe, most importantly, the humility to stop trying to be the hero and instead embrace being the guide.
And if vulnerability really is the key, the fuel for that connection, it leads to a final, pretty provocative thought for you to think about.
Yeah.
What is the most uncomfortable dragon from your own career? That one big struggle, that near failure, that profound mistake that you have always, always polished up or just refused to share. Because according to everything we've looked at today, the story of that failure, if you share it authentically, might just be the thing that unlocks your greatest influence.